Good afternoon and welcome back to Tactics Board. Today we're previewing Norwich City's championship game against Middlesbrough, their second at Carrow Road in 4 days, and of course they'll be looking to bounce back from a very disappointing defeat to Leeds at the weekend, but there is an opportunity for them if they can play the way that they did against Leeds in the first half. Offensively they looked pretty good for the first sort of 60 minutes, and although they have got defensive woes, I think it will be encouraging for supporters to see that they can produce consistent creativity and some very good structural offensive work even without Josh Sargent and Ashley Barnes in the team. But they will need to solidify at the back because Middlesbrough are a team that will expose the weaknesses that Leeds exposed. Most of the dangerous moments that the visitors had on Saturday came through transition and fast counter-attacking and a lack of strong defensive structure in Norwich City's midfield, and Middlesbrough are a team who will be able to exploit that really. They don't have the same sort of headline players that they did last season. They obviously lost Chuba Akpom, Cameron Archer up front and a couple of other key loanees that they had. Aaron Ramsey, of course, former Norwich player who's now gone to Burnley from Aston Villa. So they aren't quite the same team that they were last season. They don't have quite the same level of, dare I say, skill and sort of technical excitement that you had in the team last season, but they do have still very strong runners, very physical players. They can get forward quickly, and they've come off the back of a win against Wayne Rooney's Birmingham City this weekend. They started the season very, very poorly indeed, of course, and I think most people will be aware of that, but they're quickly getting back up the championship table and showing the sort of form that they did last season. I think it's a credit to Michael Carrick's work that they've been able to do that, because he has lost so many key players, and although they did a little bit of work in the transfer market, they haven't signed the same calibre of players that you'd say had left. So Michael Carrick tactically is clearly a very capable coach, and I think he's shown that in the last few weeks, and it will be a very difficult test for Norwich. This is the second in a really difficult run of games for them before the November international break. So it will be a difficult one for David Wagner's team to get back on it. But if they can perform offensively in the way that they did against Leeds and then just find a way to solidify themselves at the back, then I think they will be in with a chance of getting 3 points. But at the moment, that doesn't feel particularly likely. So after just a few days of rest from that game and the way that it ended, you'd expect maybe a couple of changes from David Wagner. So this is the team that I think he'll field for that game against Borough. So I've gone with George Long in goal, Jack Stacey at right back, Shane Duffy and Ben Gibson at centre back, with Dimitris Yannoulis at left back, Kenny McLean and Adam Forshaw in the centre of midfield, Jonathan Rowe on the right, Borja Sainz on the left, with Gabriel Sara slightly behind Adam Eder. I'll go from the back, and I've just, on the basis of safety, gone for George Long. Obviously Angus Gunn limped off injured in that Leeds defeat, and that was quite a worrying moment. I think I spoke to a fan after the game in our fan reaction that wasn't especially pleased with George Long's performance. He doesn't fill me with confidence from a sort of long-range shot-stopping point of view. But I think on the ball, he does what Norwich need him to do. I don't think him or Gunn are especially capable at sort of drawing attackers in to the press so that they can then play around it. But they did it quite a lot better, both of them, I thought, in that Leeds game, and Norwich found it easier to play around the press. So I think he is capable of doing that. Obviously, if Angus Gunn is fit and well and ready to play, you'd expect him to start. But just because of that quick turnaround and sort of the way that Gunn came off, I wouldn't bet on him returning. Of course, David Wagner's press conference is later today, and this may be wrong in just a few hours' time when you can watch that video on our YouTube channel. But yeah, just for the basis of safety, I've gone with Long in goal, and then Stacey at right back, who I thought had a pretty typical game of his so far in yellow and green. To be honest, against Leeds, absolutely tore up the first half. Really, really good, athletic, got up and down, helped out Jonathan Rowe, was a really strong attacking option, and made some key interventions at the back as well. But then second half just went a bit quiet. Things didn't really work out for him technically. I remember one cross that Shane Duffy absolutely dug him out for, because he chipped it or he sort of curled it rather than chipping it onto Shane Duffy's head, which was obviously the plan. And yeah, I thought he just went quiet, which is a shame. He doesn't seem to have too many consistent 90 minutes, because I keep thinking he's back to his best, he's back to what Norwich need, and then he sort of struggles. So, yeah, I think Stacey has done enough to stay in the team, but you'd just like to see him improve that consistency, and he will be important because he's so important to the attack. And if they're going to shore up things defensively, you want him to run back quickly and defend against those counters as well. So he could be a really important player in this game. In centre-back, I've gone with Shane Duffy and Ben Gibson. I don't think either of them had especially poor games against Leeds. I don't think they were as good as they have been in maybe some other games. But it's clear that Wagner is very keen to stick with that pairing. I think when you see how Gibson contributes to the way that they play out, of course, he's the only left-footed centre-back that Norwich have at senior level. So he's important in that sense. And Wagner's spoken about how he likes to have consistency in that position. So I would be surprised if he changes that. And then at left-back, I thought Dimitris was similar to Jack Stacey in a way. Had a really, really good first half. Technically, just looks a cut above the Championship every time he plays in that Norwich shirt, but struggled defensively, especially in the second half. Got done by Dan James for that first goal that Shane Duffy unfortunately put into his own net, and just highlighted the frailties of his game, really. But he has proven himself as a sort of David Wagner favourite. Had a little rest in that Coventry game, and yeah, I expect him to start in this one. And then in midfield, I've taken the same gamble that I did before Leeds. Didn't pay off. Wagner did end up going for Gabriel Sara and Kenny McLean in midfield, but I think just because of the turnaround, he might want to make a few changes in the most sort of hard work intensive area of the pitch, and I think Adam Forshaw could come in there. He didn't have a particularly good cameo against Leeds. You could argue at fault for one of the goals that they scored, went to press, and that was a strange decision because Leeds easily played around him and countered for that Somerville goal. But I think he looks like somebody who's still getting used to the pace of the Championship and the pace of football, having had such a long break in the summer. He actually did an interview with the club's official programme before the Leeds game and said that he felt he was back up to his best, but I'm not sure we've quite seen that yet. I think he might still need some games to highlight what he showed at Leeds and Middlesbrough, ironically. But, you know, it's interesting that within that space of 4 days, he's going to face two of his former clubs, and fans of both of those clubs will know what a high level he can reach. So hopefully Norwich fans will start to see that more. I think he needs to contribute slightly more to the defensive side of things, because Wagner has spoken about the fact that, I think the quote was that he loves to be without the ball, and I think he's made maybe too many mistakes in that area, just small mistakes, but too many mistakes really to highlight himself as a sort of number 6, a solid option in that position. And if he is going to be that, this may well be the game to step up, because Norwich really need that. Alongside him, Kenny McLean, Mr. Reliable, and I thought he was incredibly unlucky to be on the losing side. On Saturday, he was all over the pitch, physical, he had so much hunger, you could see. I mean, he's normally a hard worker, but he was like a man possessed on Saturday, and I thought he was very unlucky. Of course, made a fantastic pass to Ono Hernandez in the build-up to that second goal, and overall, just, yeah, he was fantastic, and I think he's somebody who Norwich have relied upon in almost every game, and he's probably been unlucky to have been on the losing side in most of the games that Norwich have lost this season. So you absolutely expect him to be in the team. Of course, captain at the moment, although Grant Hanley is back in training, so that'll be an interesting one to follow, what impact he might have when he comes back into the team. But for now, Kenny McLean's the captain, and he is one of the first names on the team sheet for me. On the right, I've gone for Jonathan Rowe. Of course, he played in that role against Leeds, and I was actually really impressed with him, especially first half. Again, he combined really well with Jack Stacey, loved taking on players, and to his credit, it would have been easy to tail off as the Norwich team did in this period, but he's carrying on that early season form. Admittedly, slightly harder for him to get those goal contributions when his team don't have as much dominance and as much danger around him sort of on the pitch, but you know, I think he's somebody who definitely deserves a starting berth in this one, even if Wagner wasn't happy with a couple of his performances the other side of the international break, and I'd be surprised if he isn't starting in this one. On the other side, I've gone for Borja Sainz because I think it is time to throw him in, and part of me, I think this may be a slightly heart overhead prediction, but part of me thinks that if you didn't bring him off the bench against Leeds, surely there was a plan to unleash him at some point, and he was the sort of man that there was a lot of excitement about this summer. The man who I think can really help Norwich with their pressing issues and can provide in that sense, because not only at Giresunspor but for that goal he scored against Fulham, he's shown that that's his game, and he's very much a David Wagner player. So I think Wagner has to throw him in at some point. Yeah, as I said, maybe heart over head, but hopefully he does throw him in ahead of this one. And then I've gone for Sarah behind Ida, because you just can't keep Sarah out of the team, really, can you? Highlighted exactly what he can do in those advanced positions in that goal against Leeds. But if you're going to put Forshaw in and maybe add a little bit more solidity to that midfield, then it makes sense to push Sarah forward. So that's why I've got him there. Adam Ida up front actually impressed me with his general play against Leeds. Just doesn't look really like a finisher or like a deadly striker when he goes through on goal. I think he went through twice on Saturday and just didn't have the pace to really get away from defenders and get a clear shot on goal. So there are certainly weaknesses in his game, but Norwich don't have much option at the moment, and he's certainly performed better than Hwang Yu-jo. So I'd expect to see him in the 11. It'll be interesting to see how Norwich get on against a good Championship side, albeit one that I think is beatable if they can get to their sort of top potential that they've shown early this season. So that will be a difficult task, but it'll be an interesting one to watch. We'll have it covered, of course, all across our channels. So go to pinken.com or the Pinken Plus app, and it will all be covered there. Thank you for joining me here on Tactics Board, and I'll see you again soon.